Frost was still kneeling on the floor, recovering from his wounds and thinking about all the humiliation he had suffered so far, but especially in Broly's last words. Frost was possibly one of the 5 most powerful people in this universe, only being inferior to the gods and Hit. If the truth about his actions and personality were exposed to the public, it wasn't an imminent danger in his life, but that would certainly destroy all the empire he had just built from scratch. His life's work would be ruined. Therefore, he couldn't let anyone outside his circle of confidence find out. However, that little monkey boy knew everything. While Frost was still thinking about what to do next, his giant spacecraft approached his position, his spaceship, with all his beloved subordinates desperate to help his beloved emperor. However, the spacecraft doesn't directly descend into the practically destroyed asteroid. The first one to descend was a smaller spacecraft. It was one of the exclusive spacecraft of Emperor Frost, which was being driven by 3 of his elite guards. One of the few who know about the criminal operations of Frost and who supported him from the Peace Corps and Galactic Pirates in all his filthy stratagems. "Emperor Frost, are you well?" asked one of his trusted lackeys. Frost, very badly wounded, approached the spacecraft, which was prepared with medical devices for situations like these, and said, "Yes, nothing that cannot recover in a few weeks. By the way, have there been recordings, broadcasts, or has some information been leaked about what has just happened?" Another of his trusted lackeys answered, "We personally take care of cutting all communications with the outside before starting the fight, and we have not detected that anyone has transmitted anything by any other means. Although it is likely that someone has made recordings to part of us, nothing has left the spacecraft." Frost, trying to smile with difficulty because of his deformed face, said, "Great." While smiling, Frost concentrated a large amount of ki on his finger, forming a ball destroys planets so characteristic of the Frost demons, and threw it against the mother spaceship, where all the crew members were. Destroying the spaceship and killing all those inside, who watched in horror as in a few seconds the person they idolized murdered them in cold blood, something that wasn't even possible in their worst nightmares. Although the elite lackeys were also dismayed by the actions of their emperor, they understood that there was a very important reason why he carried out this brutal action. Frost, recovering his normal coldness, went to the interior of the spaceship, where his men were waiting for him with all the medical equipment, and said, "Sorry, I couldn't risk that sensitive information could reach the wrong hands. That disgusting thing seems to know about our secret company, he has said it quite clearly. I had to eliminate all possible evidence that could incriminate us. I hope you can understand if there was a friend inside the spaceship." "Majesty, how is it possible that that being knew about us?" they asked with great nervousness, not only for the possible consequences of that, also for how that information had been filtered, and how the Emperor would try to find the origin of that filtration. "Don't worry, I don't suspect any of you. I know you would never betray me, that's why you are my trusted men," Frost said to reassure his lackeys. One of the footmen asked Frost, "Then how could he have known?" Frost, who was being medically bound while talking, said, "I don't know, but I think it's due to a strange ability of that little monster. He seemed to be able to read the mind, so it is likely that he got the information from myself. He also said that nothing could escape his eye. I think that referring to the eye of his forehead, it is probable that he could spy us from afar. But no matter how he has known it, he knows it." The lackeys were somewhat calmer knowing that there was no traitor, and that they wouldn't be considered suspects. "What do we do, Your Majesty?" Frost, after thinking for a few seconds with his eyes closed, said, "For now, just try to find all the information we can about him, his race, and the orange thing he was stealing. We have to try to know where it is, but without alerting him. None of us is strong enough to beat him. Besides, despite knowing all this about us, he didn't blackmail me. Neither does it seem that he wanted to reveal the information, it was as if he didn't care in the least." One of the lackeys, relieved by this information, said, "Then this is good news. Right, Lord Frost?" Frost, somewhat annoyed by the words of his lackey, said, "It's not good news. Although they are not bad either. He may not be interested in the least, and that's why he doesn't say anything. He may be an eccentric person who doesn't care about the evils around him unless they affect him, but he may also keep that information to sell at a good price or to blackmail me whenever he wants. He's fucking time bomb that threatens to explode in our faces. If it were not for that, right now I would send a message to all the planets and organizations of the universe to chase him, even if it meant the destruction of half the universe, but we cannot do that. If we bother him, he may reveal the information as revenge, make us suffer losses, and then blackmail us. This leaves us in a very difficult situation." The lackeys, who thought they had returned to the same spot they were at the beginning of the conversation, asked, "So, there's nothing we can do. Frost with a slight smile said, as I said, just investigate him and have him located at all times. Maybe none of our organizations can beat him, but that doesn't mean that we can only use our organizations. True. The lackeys at hearing his words, amazed, worried and happy said, will not you refer to hire the services of that man? Frost, smiling at the perspicacity of his subordinates, said, that's right, I will hire that man. There's no better person in the universe for a job like this, but we have to help him find that dirty monkey, of course. One of the lackeys said, of course Lord Frost, I will try to request his services. I know people who hired him in the past, it will be very expensive, that success is almost certain. Frost, recovering from his injuries, quickly said, great. Inform the Central that the evil and dangerous being called Broly, when he faced the heroic Emperor Frost, used his elite guards as hostages, and once Frost heeded his demands to ensure safety of his guards. That horrible monster destroyed the main spaceship, killing everyone inside. That they should not approach him under any circumstances and that they should only watch and investigate. The lackey who was using the communication device said, at your command Lord Frost. Frost, getting up, went outside and said, and he also asks them to bring us a new spaceship, a spacious one. The communicator's lackey replied, at your orders, but why spacious majesty? Frost, not bothering about his subordinate's question, answered, during the fight that monkey told me something very interesting. All of Frost's subordinates were curious to know what that little monster could say. He told me something about martial arts, techniques created by weak people created martial arts in order to make the most of their weakness to win people, animals, and being stronger than them. This, yes, we understand, they said at the same time, they believed that this was a basic knowledge for everyone. You see, I never trained until now. I never learned martial arts or trained my body, because I didn't need to. I was born with the power that I have now, and with my great fighting instincts I have always been able to win anyone, so superior I have always been that until now I had never needed to show this transformation, but today I realized that I have been too confident and proud. Frost said on the outside of the satellite while doing a small warm-up. Then, the spacious spaceship is for training? Asked the lackey who was in charge of the communicator. That's right, I'm going to train hard. It's okay to leave this job to that man, but this is not just about silencing and killing that bastard. I also want to take revenge for everything he has done to me. Personally. Days after. Elsewhere in the Universe 6. Broly had discovered the location of the last Super Dragon Ball in Universe 6, and was currently absorbing it. Because he had managed to finish collecting all the Super Dragon Balls in Universe 7, the clone that had 49% of its power fulfilled its function, disappearing and returning that percentage of power to the original body. Now his body had 99% of his total power, remaining in his form of true Scion, a combat power of 148,500,000, leaving that last 1% with 1,500,000 watching the planet Earth in case something unexpected happened. With 99% of its power, the process of assimilation of the Super Dragon Balls would be almost twice as fast, reducing the work of more than 1 month in just 2 weeks. While Broly was still absorbing the last Super Dragon Ball, making sure no one was watching him, he reflected about his previous battle. Frost has turned out to be a fucking disappointment. He's even weaker than Frieza in the Namek saga. In Dragon Ball Super, both in the manga and in the anime, he was stronger than Frieza in that saga. The irrefutable proof was that he was about to lose against Piccolo. In the Android saga, Vegeta Super Saiyan with the same force that Goku lost against C-18 in a very humiliating way. C-18 at that time was only slightly weaker than C-17, but when Piccolo merged with Kami he reached the level of C-17. Even if Piccolo hadn't improved at all since the Cell saga, Frost should be at a level far superior to the ordinary Super Saiyan, that has 150.000.000 battle power. What shows that Frost trained? But I see that it hasn't been the case. I must have come a little earlier. A disappointment, but it is very likely that it wasn't a waste of time. Once I finish absorbing the last Super Dragon Ball I will do a bit of tourism. There are some places in this universe that I must visit. Since it is not yet time to ask for the wish. Everything is not ready yet. After 2.5 weeks Broly had finished absorbing the Super Dragon Ball. All of them were inside their formless realm, together, in time stopped. That was what Broly, within its green dimension, could see with extreme satisfaction. Great, my main mission in Universe 6 is over, now I just need to complete the secondary, secret missions, and maybe a hidden one, who knows. I'm dying to ask for that wish, but the conditions that I have imposed myself and the maximization of effectiveness still prevent me from doing it. This is a greater torture than buying a game that you have been waiting for years, and despite having it on the table, you cannot play it because you have tasks to do before. After rejoicing and getting frustrated at the same time, our hero left his formless realm to the Universe 6 with his beloved spaceship Kid 2.0. I have to make a few stops. But first of all I'll go to the most interesting of all, and of course the most important, not only the universe, also for my plans. In a beautiful planet of Universe 6, full of green meadows, trees, rivers, lakes, mountains from which you could see many moons of all sizes, but despite having such a prosperous and suitable environment for life, it was a practically uninhabited planet, where only plants and a few harmless insects lived, apart from two other strange-looking beings, and now, for the first time in history, an uninvited person arrived on this planet. I imagined it, this planet is exactly in the same coordinates as in the Universe 7. Well, I still haven't been here in the Universe 7, but this sacred world of the Kai of the Universe 6 is equal to the 7 in the anime. Perfect. Let's start working before the fat and thin Kai realize I'm here. Broly, trying to hide all his energy and presence, began to create an ambassadorship right on that sacred planet, a planet in which no mortal was supposed to step. A mortal was creating a direct door to a forbidden world, without anyone being aware. After a few hours of high tension, in which Broly was creating an embassy that covered the entire planet, while watching the movements of the Kai, to detect if they had discovered him and know what they do in their free and work time. However, for his little surprise, there wasn't much difference between the Kais of the two universes. They mainly slept, wandered, and observed different points of the universe from their crystal ball, but not for work reasons. Really, be a god must be the easiest job in all realities. Is this supposed to be the people who watch over the safety of the universe? Where have they gotten the title? Am I supposed to pay them with my taxes? Well, I don't tax in Universe 6, but this. I cannot leave things like that. I have to do something to help this universe and get rid of inept leaders. Or at least punish them. While Fua, the Supreme Kai, and his tall and thin green phosphorescent assistant, we don't know his name, so we'll call him Thin, were back to back on a tree while doing absolutely nothing. When suddenly, a flying hand appeared out of nowhere, tapping Fua on the shoulder. Thin, do you want something? Asked Fua, who was surprised that Fit asked him for something like that. Thin, who was looking at the clouds quietly, was surprised by the words of Fua and replied, "No, Supreme Kai, I don't want anything." "Why do you ask?" "For nothing, don't listen to me," said Fua, who believed he had imagined that someone had touched his shoulder. A few seconds passed and the flying hand appeared once again. This time touching Thin's shoulder in the same way he did with Fua. "Supreme Kai, what's wrong?" Fit asked, turning to Fua. Fua turned to Thin again and replied, "Nothing, and you?" Once again two hands appeared, one behind Fua and one behind Thin, touching their heads with their fingers. Fua, who was the quickest of the two, turned to Thin, this time something angry. It wasn't his imagination. "Thin, are not you old enough to stop making these jokes?" Thin, who turned to Fua a few seconds later, replied, "I don't know what you mean, but please, stop bothering me, I'm busy." Both were surprised by the performance of the other. They did not want to give it too much importance, since they were always bored, and they understood that his partner would like to have fun in some way, but after more than 15 minutes of continuous repetition, and increase of the forcefulness of the jokes, they lost the tranquility and good manners so typical of a Kai. "Stop, Thin. It's not funny anymore," Fua said as he struggled with Thin, grabbing him by the neck part of the suit. "I repeat again, it wasn't me," Thin said, while grabbing Fua in the same way. Fua, shouting at Fit's face a few millimeters away, said, "On this planet we are just you and me. Who else can be?" Thin, hitting his forehead with Fua's with anger, said, "That's what I say. Nobody but you has been able to steal my hat." "What do you mean?" "It was you who pulled me by the hair," Fua said, pointing to his pineapple hair, which was totally disheveled, and it was missing many hairs. "No, you've been the one who has stretched me hard on the ears," Thin said that it pointed to his ears, that they were green before and now they were a red, and something purple at certain points where it seemed to have been pinched. "No, it's you who has patted me on the belly," Fua said as he pulled up his suit, showing that in his fat green belly there were several hand marks. Both, angry and tired of arguing among themselves, then they turned away while they crossed their arms in a childish behavior. They did not want to see each other's faces, but two hands appeared once more in a blind spot for both, and quickly, silently, and implacably, gave them a very strong slap upside the head. So strong that it sounded like a thunder across the planet, so strong that it sent them several meters away. "It's over. You're going to regret treating your superior this way," Fuwa said, making a fight stance. "You're the one who's going to regret. I don't care if you're the Supreme Kai, I'm going to beat you up," said Thin, making another fight stance. Aya. After those unfortunate and mysterious incidents, Fuwa and Fit began to fight as if their lives were at stake, hitting each other hard, no matter how many millions of years of friendship they had and the position of both. They weren't holding back, their fists they began to fill with blood. However, in the midst of that chaos, in a parallel dimension, there was a person eating popcorn and drinking a cola, who quietly observed that unfortunate conflict between friends as if it were a movie. Ha 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 ha. What an unexpected outcome. Who will win the fight? Will someone die? Will they be friends again? Will they discover the truth? I hope to discover it in another episode of Laurel and Hardy, said Broly while he stopped eating, drinking and got up from the couch. This trip has been profitable, fun, and I have managed to get those two lazy people to stop sleeping. I feel that I have done a good work for this universe. Now it's time to go somewhere else. Let's see if it's in the same coordinates, said Broly, coming out of his dimension to instantly disappear using the Kai. Once again, Broly appeared on another planet, which was also green and full of lakes, although something swampier than the previous one. If it weren't for the large amount of precious flowers, would be exactly the same planet in which Broly was a few months ago before. That's right, Broly was on the planet Namek of Universe 6. Which was an exact replica of the Universe 7, except for a few details. On this planet Namek the cataclysm never happened, which is why there were still Ajaisa all over the planet. The Namekians hadn't been practically extinct, so there were hundreds of thousands on the planet, unlike in the Universe 7, which there were barely 200. Because the planet enjoyed great prosperity and did not lose the technological advance that they once had, they were able to travel to other planets and have commercial relationships, so the planet Namek of Universe 6 wasn't a planet practically forgotten as in the Universe 7. There even seemed to be some tourism. Wow, it's awesome how a simple event can change so many things. I see that there are also Dragon Balls with the size of a watermelon in this place. It's good news. It's always good to have more Dragon Balls nearby just in case. Above all, in these moments of uncertainty like the one I'm in, I will create another ambassadorship and I will leave to what possible will be my last destination. Broly, in the same way he did in the sacred world of the Kai, began to create a large ambassadorship, covering the whole planet. During the hours that Broly was surrounding the planet with his formless realm, he could hear some very interesting conversations from the entire planet Namek. He found them very interesting precisely because we're about him. Did you hear the rumors? Said a powerful-looking Namekian who was responsible for the security of the Great Patriarch. You mean the monkey boy with 3 eyes? I've heard something. Thanks to our prodigious hearing it's easy to listen many things, said a something fatter Namekian B. I have also heard some of that. A friend of mine works in the Peace Corps of Emperor Frost, and it seems that they are looking for him throughout the universe, said a youthful Namekian C. It seems that they want to keep secret why they are looking for him, but it is extremely dangerous criminal. He have killed hundreds of Peace Corps soldiers. Although I don't understand why there is so much secrecy, the most logical thing would be to put a search and capture order, said the Namekian who started the conversation. Wow, he looks like a dangerous guy, no wonder they're looking for him. But, why are you so interested? Asked the Namekian B, who sensed that something strange related them to that monkey child. A few days ago an emissary of Frost's Peace Corps came to see the Great Patriarch to ask him a question. They wanted to know if he recognized the race of that monkey child and also, about a strange object that being was making disappear, a circular and crystalline object of orange color with stars that can be seen from all directions. What does it remind you of? Said the Namekian seriously, as he watched the expression of his friends change drastically. That cannot be true. The Dragon Balls are supposed to be a secret, only known by us and by the gods. How is it that others know about them? One moment. Did you say that monkey boy has been making them disappear? Why have I not heard about that yet? Asked the Namekian B, extremely alarmed, as if that answer depended on the fate of the universe. Don't worry, our Dragon Balls are fine and where they should be. They haven't consulted the great patriarch specifically for the Dragon Balls, simply because of his age and knowledge related to magic and the mystical world. Obviously we have denied knowing anything about the Dragon Ball, but the most shocking thing is that the unknown Dragon Ball has the size of a planet, said the Namekian A to reassure the Namekian B and C, and make them worry again. What have you said? Of a planet? Who the hell could have created a Dragon Ball like that, and who wants to make that monster with her? The Namekian B said with cold sweat and pale face. This is bad, if that evil being asks for a wish to a Dragon Ball of that size. What can happen is, said the Namekian C, with worse aspect than the Namekian B. Broly, who was listening to the conversation while creating his ambassadorship. I killed hundreds of soldiers. Frost. What lie have you told about me? Well, it doesn't matter. It seems that he is doing his job well. Maybe I'll just need to make one last trip at the end. On a new planet with a yellowish sky, quite desolate, but with vegetation and civilization. In the middle of the main street of the capital of the planet where there were dozens of native people of that planet which looked 100% similar to humans, although some were muscular, others slimmer, some taller, others shorter, others younger, others older. They all had something in common, they had black hair and black eyes and a high fighting power difficult to find on many other planets. All of them had stopped their usual daily tasks and directed their gaze to a quite famous restaurant where the specialty was meat, which was served in industrial quantities. They were looking at a strange little boy with 3 eyes who devoured the plates after the other. Some looked at him because of his strange appearance, which stood out excessively, not only on this planet, he would do it anywhere. Some looked at him because of the exaggerated way he had to eat. The inhabitants of this planet could eat more than many other races, but none could compete with that child. Did you say that that monkey boy has been making them disappear? Why have I not heard about that yet? Asked the Namekian B, extremely alarmed, as if that answer depended on the fate of the universe. Don't worry, our Dragon Balls are fine and where they should be. They haven't consulted the great patriarch specifically for the Dragon Balls, simply because of his age and knowledge related to magic and the mystical world. Obviously we have denied knowing anything about the Dragon Ball, but the most shocking thing is that the unknown Dragon Ball has the size of a planet, said the Namekian A to reassure the Namekian B and C, and make them worry again. What have you said? Of a planet? Who the hell could have created a Dragon Ball like that, and who wants to make that monster with her? The Namekian B said with cold sweat and pale face. This is bad, if that evil being asks for a wish to a Dragon Ball of that size. What can happen is, said the Namekian C, with worse aspect than the Namekian B. Broly, who was listening to the conversation while creating his ambassadorship. I killed hundreds of soldiers. Frost. What lie have you told about me? Well, it doesn't matter. It seems that he is doing his job well. Maybe I'll just need to make one last trip at the end. On a new planet with a yellowish sky, quite desolate, but with vegetation and civilization. In the middle of the main street of the capital of the planet where there were dozens of native people of that planet which looked 100% similar to humans, although some were muscular, others slimmer, some taller, others shorter, others younger, others older. They all had something in common, they had black hair and black eyes and a high fighting power difficult to find on many other planets. All of them had stopped their usual daily tasks and directed their gaze to a quite famous restaurant where the specialty was meat, which was served in industrial quantities. They were looking at a strange little boy with 3 eyes who devoured the plates after the other. Some looked at him because of his strange appearance, which stood out excessively, not only on this planet, he would do it anywhere. Some looked at him because of the exaggerated way he had to eat. The inhabitants of this planet could eat more than many other races, but none could compete with that child. Some more experienced in martial arts and ki looked at him because they felt a great power emanating from his small body, an inconceivable power for a mortal. A few others looked at him with fear, as if they knew his identity, but those few people immediately ran off to another direction. However, even though everyone on that street was watching him, he was watching the whole planet like a kami from his watchtower. Nothing escaped his senses, even when he was devouring all the dishes. So this is the planet Sadala. It's a very interesting planet. It looks like the planet Vegeta, same gravity, same architecture, similar technological level, but of course it's much prettier. The scions here don't have a tail, they are more civilized, they cook better and they have a much higher power level. Although from what I'm seeing a lot they work for a frost demon, just like the scions of the Universe 7, there are things that don't change too much. Broly had been several days on the planet Sadala. During that time, he was quietly traveling the streets of the planet doing sightseeing and consulting the history of the scions of this universe, looking for information about the disappearance of the tale and the legend of the legendary Super Scion. He was also trying to concentrate the scions who appeared in the Dragon Ball Super story, but there were no records yet of Cabba, Caulifla or Kale. None of them were born yet. The only one he could recognize was Renso, the older brother of Caulifla and the teacher of Cabba, who was much younger than in the anime and wasn't crippled, and despite his young age he was already a captain of the Sadala Defense Forces. Since he didn't have much to do on that planet, he simply dedicated himself to having fun and eating, paying only with gold that he could create thanks to his magic of materialization, time in which he was transformed into true Scion, waiting for something. Well, it seems that they are beginning to act. I was tired of waiting. Spacecraft of Emperor Frost. In a spacious training room, Emperor Frost was training with several of his elite guards in his greatest involution, when suddenly one of his trusted men came in to report some news. Emperor Frost, they've sent us a message from planet Sadala. They've found that Broly, said his man of confidence at the same moment of entering the door. Upon hearing this news, Frost and his men stopped training and with joy, Frost said, "Great. I've been waiting for almost a month for that news. That damned worm must have been hiding in a hole all this time so I wouldn't find him. Do you know for what purpose he is on the planet Sadala?" His man of confidence, reading the reports with cold sweat on his forehead, said, "According to reports that have sent us, it seems that he has been touring the whole planet day and night, especially they mention how much he has eaten. He doesn't seem to have done anything suspicious yet." Upon hearing that report, Frost went into a rage. What? Tourism? While I have mobilized the great powers of the universe to find him. While I have spent a ridiculous sum of money to kill him. While I've been training like crazy to take revenge. Has that damn monkey been sightseeing carelessly on one of the most powerful planets? One of the planets where I have more influence. After a few moments of anger, Frost calmed down, but still angrily asked those in the room, "What do you think is happening? That monkey or is a poor idiot, or he is underestimating us too much." One of his subordinates said to reassure him, "I think they are both Lord Frost. As you have ordered, I have already warned that man. Luckily he was close to that location, so he will arrive right away." "Great, I hope we can get there in time before he kills him. We tried to reach an agreement with him to beat that fucking monkey and give him to us half dead, but that damn thief didn't want to accept those terms. Therefore, I'll have to finish his prey in the middle of the fight. I hope he survives before we get there, but this training will not have been of any use," Frost said, transforming into his true form. "Quick, change the course of all spacecraft to the planet Sadala," said one Frost guards to the command room. Planeta Sadala, main street of the capital of the planet. A few hours later, the troops of the planet Sadala had begun to mobilize. Some spaceships belonging to Frost's Peace Corps were beginning to arrive on the planet. The common people were beginning to leave the streets, as if something bad were going to happen. Meanwhile, Broly was still in a restaurant, eating and drinking quietly, as if nothing were happening around him, but in reality he was monitoring everything that was happening around him. He knew exactly where he was being watched, how the Sadala planet's troops were moving, and the spacecraft entering and leaving the atmosphere. He didn't make a single movement until a certain spacecraft that didn't seem to belong to any organization arrived on the planet. Oh. The danger is approaching. He's here. The person from whom nobody wants to be his target. The strongest person in this universe without counting the god of destruction and his assistant. The legendary Hitman Hit. This is exactly as I planned from the beginning. Ha ha ha. Besides getting the Super Dragon Balls, what Broly wanted to find in Universe 6 was to have a fight with someone more powerful than him, partly to improve his fighting level, but above all to force the awakening of his Super Saiyan. Although he met Frost by chance, from the beginning, he wanted to fight against him. According to his calculations, Frost, if he had the same level of power as in the tournament, he could give him a certain fight if he didn't resort to the Kaioken, making it possible to awaken his Super Saiyan in a moment of epiphany, but it hadn't been possible, so he would need a superior enemy. Hit. Broly humiliated Frost that way, revealed that he knew his darkest secret and left him alive, for Frost to spend his money and hire Hit to try to kill him. With that, he would avoid the inconvenience of looking for him, finding him and convincing him to fight. Besides, there was the possibility that Frost hired Hit to leave Broly half dead, to give him the final blow, which would increase his chances of surviving. At the same time, there was also the possibility that Frost could train and improve his power, so that he could fight again, until he was a worthy opponent or hired Hit. It was the perfect crime. Frost, I congratulate you, you have been able to move exactly as I expected. I guess I'll have to give you a gift later. Now I have to face the biggest challenge of my life. After concluding those thoughts, Broly materialized a piece of paper on the table and continued sitting in the same chair he was in, waiting for the right moment. On the streets of the same city, a tall, muscular humanoid with purple skin, flattened ears, a bald head, and red eyes that wears a long, turtleneck, dark purple, blue, and gray trench coat, walked with his hands in his pockets to a specific point in the city. At the point where his murder target was Broly, the evil monkey boy with strange powers and great strength, who was eating at a nearby restaurant. Although he didn't need anyone to tell him his location, Broly wasn't hiding all his energy. Indeed, he could tell that this mysterious key was charged with ulterior motives. It was as if he was saying, I'm here, but that wasn't the only thing he felt. I've had the same feeling before stepping on this planet. It's as if someone is watching me at all times, in all places and from all directions. A very unpleasant feeling. As he continued to walk slowly, but without pause, he could finally see the restaurant from which that annoying energy emanated. Inside the restaurant was his murder target. It was just as he had been described, small, black hair, red eyes, monkey tail and brown fur on the body, although now he was wearing a black jacket that covered all upper part of his body. He was sitting in the restaurant, with his legs and arms healed, while watching Hit with a smile. Hit realized the unusualness of the situation. During all this time it was he who has been watching me, there is no doubt. Have you been waiting for me all this time? I think it's the first time someone waits for me to kill him of his own free will. Hit kept moving a little faster towards his arrogant goal, when suddenly someone spoke to him telepathically. Hi, Hit, I've been waiting for you for days. What do you think if we have the fight in another place with fewer obstacles? I'm not one of those who likes to destroy cities while I fight, you have to respect the street furniture. It was evident that Broly had sent the telepathic message to him, and because of the content of the message, he intended to flee from here. Although he had said to fight elsewhere, Hit wasn't sure if he would keep his promise or if he would just run away, so he didn't accept Broly's invitation, which seemed to be about to do something. Hit instantly performed his characteristic move. Time skip. With this technique Hit can be transported to a parallel dimension created by him, in which time is stopped. For 0.1 seconds Hit is able to move and perform attacks in that dimension, and once he leaves that dimension, no time has passed outside. A very small lapse of time, but thanks to the speed of Hit, it was more than enough time to approach someone and kill him. Hit moved at a great speed in that dimension and quickly approached Broly, who was sitting in the chair of the restaurant, helpless in the time-stopped state. According to his calculations 0.1 seconds was more than enough time to get to his position and kill him, but there was a variable that he didn't have in his calculations. When approaching Broly, his body began to weigh more than normal and therefore it was harder to move. It was as if the gravity around him became stronger, making that 0.1 seconds were insufficient to finish with his target. Is this an ability of him? How is it possible that it affects me in my own dimension? When he came out of the time-skip dimension, Broly instantly teleported. When he disappeared, Hit tried to locate Broly's key but, looking towards the table he saw that it wouldn't be necessary. Above the table was a map of the planet Sadala with an X marked in a completely uninhabited place a few minutes from there. The place where they would have their fight. Interesting, said Hit while smiling slightly. Broly was warming up in an esplanade, preparing for what would be the most important battle of his life and thinking about possible strategies and alternatives. I pray it's the Hit sleeve, that Hit at least had a power-up limit. The anime version in only fighting power was stronger than the SS God Blue. However, in the manga, his total power was somewhat inferior to SS God Red, but he could match SS God Blue with his techniques. In my current state, I cannot beat him in any version, but at least the difference will be less dramatic with manga Hit. It didn't take many seconds until Hit arrived at the place marked on the map, where Broly was waiting for him. Hit, with his hands in his pockets as usual, asked, if you are able to teleport yourself, why have not you run away? I recognize that you are strong, but do you think you can face me? Broly, finishing his warm-up and relocating his coat, looked at Hit and replied, I don't know, that's why I'm facing you, and in case you're going to kill me I can always run away. However, don't worry, I'll send you another map of where you can find me if that happens. I have to amortize the expenses of your hiring. Hit, trying not to smile at Broly's words, said, "Child, you're crazy. But I don't worry, because I doubt there is a need to send me another map." The atmosphere became more tense. Broly and Hit at a short distance of 9 meters stared at each other, waiting for the right moment to start the fight. After a few seconds of analyzing the opponent, Broly was the first to attack. Broly in his true Saiyan state at all times quickly accelerated towards Hit with his right fist held high. Hit remained motionless in the same position and unblinking, with his hands in his pockets, waiting for Broly to come closer. When Broly stood a few inches away from him, he used his time skip again. This time Hit in that 0.1 seconds released in its dimension to Ki-laced punch, his most characteristic attack. That blow of Ki will came out of that dimension and would directly impact Broly's vital point, catching his opponent by surprise and preventing him from defending himself. After 0.1 seconds inside his dimension, his attack hit directly where Hit always usually hit to kill someone, in the heart. That incredible Ki punch of stop time, by the impact distorted the jacket of Broly, stopping his advance and showing in his face a great pain. His death blow had impacted on his target. Hit thought he had already finished with him, lowering his guard for a fraction of a second, but at that moment, a hand appeared behind his head, grabbing it and launching a powerful energy attack at the same time. Boom! Hit didn't know how that attack had arrived at that position, but luckily when feeling the pain, he was able to use his time skip to escape before the attack affected him completely. Because he thought he had killed Broly, he had lowered his defenses and remained a little unprotected, so that attack hurt him, and although it would not be fatal in the event that it had hit him completely, it could have caused serious injuries. In that 0.1 of time, Hit moved away from that point and turned to see who had attacked him. As he turned around, he saw a hairy hand flying in the air throwing an energy attack. What the hell is that? Upon leaving time skip, his eyes were fixed on the flying hand, losing sight of Broly that was still falling to the ground. Time lapse in which Broly teleported behind him, leaving his flying hand in the same position to keep attracting Hit's attention, to be able to attack him once again by surprise. But Hit, who had a millennium of experience in his back, felt that someone was about to attack him. Thanks to his instincts he was able to react in time, stopping Broly's attack with his hand. At the moment Broly's attack was stopped, a right leg appeared in Hit's blind spot. Kaioshin X10. Hit saw how a red aura enveloped Broly, increasing his power several times, as well increasing slightly his muscles. While he made it appear that his attack was coming from above using his left arm, the real attack that was his leg, Hit hit on his knee, losing his balance. At that moment, as in the restaurant, he noticed that his body was weighing more, making it more difficult to get up, dodge or counterattack. Broly, taking advantage of that moment, released a breath of energy from his mouth, which tenths of a second before he had been preparing, and threw him against him, destroying everything that was hundreds of meters in his direction. Boom! Hit once again using his skip time, was able to get away from that attack and counterattack again, sending once again from his dimension another Ki punch to Broly's heart. Once again his jacket was deformed by the punch, but this time he didn't seem affected, since at the same time, Broly still in his state Kaioken loaded 2 Rasen Omega Blaster in his hands, and teleported them forward and behind Hit, surrounding him. At that moment, Hit, who didn't have time to perform his time skip, reinforced his defenses with his powerful Ki, which he had been repressing until now. Boom! After a few moments, after the smoke dissipated, Hit appeared with only a few scratches and the armor a little damaged. Broly and Hit looked at each other about 9 meters away again, just like before the start of the fight about 4 seconds ago. Both were catching their breath and reanalyzing their opponent. You use some very strange techniques, monkey boy. It seems that you are not only able to teleport to flee, but also to attack, and you can also transfer your legs and hands. Am I wrong? Said Hit, who was a little excited to find a fighter who used special techniques in combat, like him. Hahaha, it's an honor that Hit, the owner of the time skip, call my skill a strange technique. Is it the first time you fight with someone like me? Broly said as he replaced his jacket. That question was actually quite interesting. Hit, despite being a special techniques fighter, he was used to fighting warriors who only knew how to use brute force and energy attacks. Until now, he had never fought with someone like him, which had caught him by surprise at first. I admit that you caught me by surprise, but it will not happen again. In the majority of Dragon Ball fights in which two opponents who never fought before or with similar power, usually has a logical sequence that has been maintained throughout the course of the franchise, not by whim, but by logic. First, You must understand the power and abilities of the opponent and prevent the opponent from discovering your power and abilities. To do this, both of them from the beginning maintain their power hidden, and increase it slowly during the combat, the same with their techniques and abilities, which they show slowly. The energy of the warriors is usually limited, androids, and it is necessary to know how to administer it. If from the beginning, someone started the fight at 100% power, spending most of their energy from a single attack or in a taxing transformation without knowing the capabilities of the adversary, it is likely that this adversary has the ability to dodge that attack or that have techniques that make him able to avoid them, teleportation, barriers, regeneration. If that happened, that fighter would be exhausted quickly and could lose against someone even weaker, simply for having failed that attack. Attack in which not only he has squandered by failing to know the evasive abilities of his opponent, also because it is an attack that may have used more energy than necessary to kill the opponent. Therefore, both will fight hand to hand, raising and varying the power level, performing different techniques with moderate power to discover the capabilities of the opponent. They will be pressing each other to demonstrate their special abilities and the limit of their power. When one of the subjects has reached the limit of his power and has no more power to show, while his opponent does have it, he will lose. Unless he finds the opponent's weak point or some of his disadvantages to counteract him, or make an attack beyond his limits as a last hope. This methodology has the risk of being surprised by someone who shows all his power from the beginning, as happened on the occasion when Trunks of the Future annihilated Frieza and his father, who lost so quickly by underestimating his adversary by not showing an equal power from a beginning. Because Trunks knew them and what they could do, while they didn't know him, they had an excessive self-confidence and didn't have the ability to analyze his rival's ki. However, despite that, it's a pretty necessary strategy to win, especially against warriors with special abilities like Hit or Broly, in which their strange supernatural abilities could offer a superior advantage even to tens of millions of fighting power. That was the reason why Hit had not started using all his power from the beginning, since he didn't know the limits of his power, which could increase explosively in certain moments, or his amazing defense, which seemed to resist his deadly blows. Neither how his spatial ability worked. That was the reason why Broly didn't show all his power and abilities from the beginning continuously, so that Hit didn't discover how his abilities worked, therefore his limitations, nor that his power was inferior to his. Spaceship of Frost's Peace Corps. On Frost's orders, all available soldiers near the planet Sadala had to watch Broly, all his movements and record everything that happened on the planet, to know where to attack him and something more about his abilities and real power. From different spaceships and ground teams were capturing, retransmitting, sharing and analyzing everything that was happening in the fight between Hit and Broly. Everyone who was watching the fight, from the most inexperienced engineers to the oldest elite warriors, couldn't believe what they were seeing. How is it possible? The hands and legs of that Broly are disappearing from his body and appearing in another place, said one of the technicians in charge of analyzing the data, who didn't know how to fit his scientific knowledge with what he saw. Both perform very strange techniques, said another who was next to the previous. Who is that man? How can he be so quick? He might be stronger than Emperor Frost, said one of the most novice elite warriors inside that room. This is crazy, exclaimed another warrior. What the hell are these monsters? Asked a technician. I recognize him, that's the legendary Hitman Hit, said with stupefaction and fear one of the most veteran elite warriors. Hit? That Hit? Who else has offended that little monster to hire that legend? Said another veteran elite warrior, who couldn't imagine that Frost himself was the one who hired Hit. I don't know. But it doesn't matter, our orders were to monitor Broly and get all the information we can about him. When the Emperor Frost arrives in a few minutes, he will know what to do, said the alien who seemed to be in command of that spacecraft. I hope that planet Sadala survives until then, said one of the scions who collaborated with Emperor Frost. The fight started again. In this new round, Hit started using more power. The maximum power of Broly transformed into its 99% was 148,500,000. Thanks to his KIN, his effective fighting power improved between 2 and 3 times, with what could be 445,500,000, far surpassing a Super Saiyan 2. Finally, thanks to Kaioshin was able to multiply his power level by a maximum of 20. Being able to reach momentarily and with side effects a power level of 8.910.000.000, a power almost 7.5 times superior to the Super Saiyan 3. Although for now, as estimated by Broly, Hit was using about 20% of his power. Broly was being forced to use the Kaioshin X7 almost all the time. Hit continued to increase his powers slowly and kept checking Broly's abilities in different ways, but trying to keep all the energy he could and without making sudden moves, because everything in that fight was disconcerting. Hit, with the speed granted by his time skip, hit repeatedly to Broly in several places. Broly could barely defend himself, only stopping and dodging some attacks directed to his head, drastically increasing his speed and power in the moment to perform those actions with Kaioshin. While Hit had the time skip and a great combat power always available, Broly had to increase the power of the Kaioshin to adapt to the power and speed of Hit, increasing it at the right time and the right power to reserve energies and not punish excessively his body. Teleporting only when he saw no escape and attacking slightly when he saw an opening. Broly was being able to stop some of Hit's attacks and even attack him. The reason was that, like Goku, he was getting used to that 0.1 second difference thanks to his extraordinary fighting instinct granted by the legendary Super Saiyan physique. To his Zen, with which he was able to observe everything that happened around him. To his Jugen, who allowed him to read the movements that his adversary was about to perform. Also, and more importantly, to the strange zone of increased gravity that was around him, which slowed Hit. Sometimes he is able to read my movements. However, all this is very strange. Until now, all the keypooks that he had sent to the vital places seemed not to have all the effect he expected. However, the attacks to random places were showing signs of having an effect, while those sent to the face were practically the only ones that he tried to avoid. Hit began to realize that none of that was by chance. Broly had adopted a defensive posture, as if he were a boxer who allowed himself to be hit on purpose. Defending to tire his opponent and thus be able to win in later rounds. Clearly, I have hit him many more times than he has hit me. Not only has he not died, he seems to be perfectly. In some blows it seems that he doesn't even defend himself. Until now, he has only been seriously defending himself against attacks on his head. Maybe. Hit taking his hands out of his pockets for the first time and adopting his fighting pose, he rushed towards Broly, and began to attack him from all directions. Of every 10 attacks that Hit made, 3 were aimed at his face, of which 1 was dodged and 2 blocked. The other 7 were aimed towards his body, hitting the heart, liver, abdomen, solar plexus, repeating several times in the heart without effect, until finally he defended himself and moved away. This time he hit his body without using his ki punch, he only hit him using his physical strength, and then he understood what was happening. You will not escape. I already understand it. Hit, for the first time in the fight, and possibly for centuries didn't attack with a hit, but with a grip. When Broly was escaping slightly back, Hit grabbed his jacket and with a little strength, he tore it off. As I suspected. Under the coat several parts of Broly's body were hollow. Several of the vital points that Hit had focused from the first moment of the fight were hollow, as if they had been pierced from beginning to end, and around that hole there was a kind of green energy. Broly, after realizing that he had been discovered, returned the parts of his body that were in the formless realm back to his place. As I imagined, when I hit you with my hands I felt that in those places there wasn't thing. I think the way in which you separate the parts of your body to attack and teleport are related to this technique. Am I wrong? Hit said as he got rid of the jacket on his hands. Broly, leaving several meters away from Hit, said in a childish tone, he, you have discovered me. That's right, like you I also have a very curious dimension with many applications. Hit, surprised that Broly knew the details behind his time skip, tried to know more about his skill. That jacket only served to hide the parts you were hiding. From the beginning you have been hiding your vital points in your dimension to avoid being hit, however, you haven't hidden all the body covered by the jacket, which means that there is a limit in the amount you can hide. In this last time, I have repeatedly attacked your heart, and once you had to defend yourself, which means that you cannot keep them hidden all the time either. You have also been defending your head all this time, which means that either you are not able to hide parts of your head or that you didn't want me to realize that you could hide parts of your body. I'm wrong. Broly, with cold sweat, but with the same poker face as before, said with a slight smile, you are very talkative to be a legendary hitman. Hit, a bit flushed by the fact that someone has noticed his most emotional part that only wakes up when he finds an exciting fight, said, today I'm a bit emotional. It's refreshing to be the person surprised for the first time. However, now that I know your skill, do you think your strategy of attrition will continue to work? Broly, smiling once more and with some confidence, said, no, I don't think a strategy of attrition works against you, Hit. I think it's time for me to go back on the offensive too. This time Broly, without a jacket, and with the Kaioshin X10 teleported behind Hit and tried to punch him in the back. Hit with his time skip was able to react quickly to the teleportation of Broly, turning around, narrowly avoiding Broly's attack and throwing a punch at his face. The area in which he had to discover if was the most vulnerable because he couldn't hide it in his dimension, or, if he could and had been pretending not to be able to hide his abilities. Hit's punch was going to hit directly in the center of his face. Broly at the last moment minimally dodged the blow, causing Hit's fist to hit his right side which was transported to his dimension, causing the punch to go through his body. Yes, he could hide it, but why has he dodged a little if he could hide his head? Has it been to throw me off? Or Kaioshin X20. Boom. At the moment Hit was distracted by how Broly had hidden part of his face in the Formless Realm, the punch he thought he had dodged appeared behind him, impacting his almost unprotected back. However, that wasn't all. Around the floating fist of Broly began to materialize an energy form. A green energetic shape in the form of a drill, which turns violently on Hit's back. Giga Drill Breaker. Aw. Hit used a lot of ki on his back and at the same time used his time skip to flee. Upon leaving time skip, Hit was somewhat injured, not a kind of excessively serious injury, but that would affect a little bit his ability to fight. Broly didn't wait, and began his attack once again, in the most savage and insistent way against Hit, which thanks to his time skip was able to counterattack several times. Hit had managed to make a good analysis of Broly's ability applied to the defense. Broly, like Obito's Kamui, was able to teleport parts of his body to his dimension. However, while the Kamui is able to send parts of the body automatically when they superimposed with another surface, Broly's ability must be activated manually. Broly had to foresee where and when they were going to attack him to be able to transport that part to the Formless Realm. When he fought against Mr. Popo, it was very easy for him to foresee his movements, being able to transport or return each part at the precise moment, creating the impression that them teleported automatically like the Kamui. However, with Hit's time skip and speed it wasn't so easy to calculate the impact moment, so Broly chose to have his vital points saved in his Formless Realm, especially the heart, which was the point where Hit always preferred to attack. So Broly, against his aesthetic preferences with the transformation True Saiyan, had used a jacket to hide the parts he had teleported to his Formless Realm. However, as Hit had said, there were certain limitations in terms of this defensive ability to hide specific parts in his dimension. Broly was able to go inside the Formless Realm whenever he wanted and be as long as he wanted without restrictions. However, he had to introduce his head first, or rather, his Jugon inside the Formless Realm, which would instantly enter the whole body, which is why he tried not to be hid in the Jugon. However, there were limitations for when he didn't fully enter. He could only insert a third of his body, 3 eyes, 1/3, so he couldn't hide much of his body all the time. Broly defended himself several times in places that he was supposed to hide, like his heart, but not because there was a time limit in which he could hide a part of his body. Our cunning Broly simply wanted to make him believe that this was the case, to make him create a strategy based on that premise. Broly had been risking a lot with this defensive strategy. He risked that Hit could hit him harshly, killing him in one stroke in an oversight. He risked Hit could discover how his abilities worked. He risked that Hit, in case it was the Hit of the anime, could evolve his time skip during the fight. However, he could manage to exhaust Hit if he decided to go with all his power, trying to hit him uselessly in places he couldn't reach. Strategy very used in boxing to win stronger rivals. Besides, there was another reason why he had chosen this strategy until now, a reason that Hit would have understood after a few minutes, a reason that someone from his screen saw, without understanding exactly what it was. Spaceship of Frost's Peace Corps. Everyone in the control room kept recording all the combat and trying to decipher how the abilities of those two monsters worked to deliver them to Emperor Frost. In that room, on one of the computers, someone noticed something by rewinding the recording several times. After checking it several times, to make sure it wasn't his imagination, he shouted, "Guys, look, I've discovered something. Something strange is happening with Hit's head." Almost all the people in the room approached the screen of that man and showed them the recordings. Everyone was silent by witnessing something so bizarre. Until someone broke that silence. What the hell is that? After his Giga Drill Breaker, Broly managed to press Hit for a few seconds, until Hit increased his power above what Broly could increase with his Kaioshin. Broly using his Kaioshin X20 had a combat power of 8.910.000.000. When Hit increased his power to 20% above Broly's maximum, approximately 10.692.000.000. The difference became very noticeable, and this doesn't seem to be the limit of Hit, not at all. It seems that is his limit, he is not able to increase his power more. Despite the powers of Broly, who had become accustomed to his time skip and the injuries that Hit had suffered during the fight, which affected his abilities. For Broly was getting harder and harder to attack. If he wanted to hit Hit once, he had to risk being hit 2 or 3 times, extremely blunt blows that practically knocked Broly out, who already had a body almost destroyed by use the Kaioshin X20 continuously. So, he spent most of his time teleporting few meters away, attacking with energy attacks on his body and occasionally teleporting his arms to attack without much success. If you just run away and don't attack, you cannot win. What do you think if you give me the map of where we can meet on the next time? Hit said, somewhat annoyed at having to chase Broly in circles. He very funny Hit, said Broly, teleporting again to another place, throwing small energy spheres to the trunk, legs and arms of Hit. But despite the great advantage that Hit had the last moments and the beating that was getting Broly and the damage his body was getting by the Kaioshin, something disturbed Hit, something that he noticed during almost all the combat, but that was becoming more and more evident. But despite the great advantage that Hit had the last moments and the beating that was receiving Broly, something unsettled Hit, something that he realized during the whole fight, but that was becoming increasingly evident at this point. This kid. He seems to be able to recover his wounds and energies quickly. Does he have some kind of regenerative capacity? It is not normal for him to be so well after receiving so many blows, having used so much energy and using that power-raising technique. They weren't Hit's imaginations. Broly was continually recovering from his injuries throughout the course of the fight. Broly didn't have any kind of regenerative capacity as Hit suspected, however, he had 2 things that together gave that impression. Formless Realm and Senzu Beans. Broly had stored more than 100,000 Senzu Beans in his Formless Realm. Every time Broly felt that his body was about to be destroyed, either by Kaioshin's pressure or Hit's blows, or that he was running out of energy, he teleported a Senzu Bean directly to his stomach, which was instantly devoured, healing his wounds and recharging the spent energy. During the combat against Hit, which hadn't lasted more than 12 minutes, Broly had consumed more than 150 Senzu Beans, having used more than half in the last 2 minutes. If it weren't for the Senzu Beans, our dear cheater wouldn't have decided to fight against Hit, nor use the strategies he had made so far. Moreover, he would have died several times during the fight. Broly was beginning to feel desperate about how the difference in levels between the two was becoming more and more evident. Damn it, not only I'm not becoming Super Saiyan, I'm taking too long to execute my plan. If I continue like this, not only will I not be able to do it in time, he will also end up realizing my plan. Damn, I'll have to settle for now. Hit was still chasing and attacking Broly, who had become extremely elusive and annoying. He kept fleeing, throwing energy attacks at the trunk, arms and legs. Attacks were clearly not powerful enough to seriously hurt him and seemed to serve only to slow him down. Hit believed that he was making a useless strategy once again, a strategy to tire him, until he lost the vision in one eye, as if he had disappeared, and then he stopped feeling most of his head. What the hell is that? Hit touched the part of his head that he had stopped feeling, as well as the right eye and part of the right ear, which seemed to have disappeared from his body. It was as if that part of the head had been sent to another dimension, and was unable to feel them, when a few seconds ago he hadn't had any problem. What the hell did you do to me? Screamed Hit, who began to feel fear for the first time. Why would someone in a death match explain their abilities? Broly said as he fled again. Hit, using the great control he had of his ki, I create a reflective energetic form, with which he saw that the whole back of his head, part of the right ear and his right eye had disappeared, and covering that vanished part there was a green energy. This is the same as when Broly hid parts of his body in the Formless Realm. But how and when did he do this to me? He hasn't attacked my head, except in that occasion. Damn. What will happen when my whole head disappears? This had been the main reason why Broly had done all this strategy so far. Broly in his first attack on Hit's head had managed to do enough damage to activate his Welcome to the Black Parade, for the first and only time in this battle, introducing a fragment of the back of Hit's head into the Formless Realm, a sufficiently hidden part of his perception so he wouldn't realize what was happening. From the moment he managed to steal that part of the head and save it in the Formless Realm, he was constantly using Surrender to make his Formless Realm slowly devour his head. However, it wasn't an easy process. Surrender allowed to expand the part affected by the "Welcome to the Black Parade" without having to have contact with the affected part. However, there were several conditions to devour it. Had to supply the affected area with more than 33% of the formless realm's energy than there was in that area. If there were 100.000 in the affected area, at least 133.000 had to be spent. Those 133.000 had to be concentrated in the same place to begin the devouring. In the same way, the affected one would only need to spend 33.000 to stop the devouring. The devour can advance to 0.33 centimeters per second, increasing depending on how many times the minimum amount is doubled. The same happens for the affected person with his capacity to recover from his affected part. The absorption process was directly related to the creation of Formless Realm itself. To create a cubic meter of Formless Realm, Broly needed to use 10.000 power level energy, the energy that according to the old movies said he had. So, what happened when there is a person with more than 10,000 power levels in a cubic meter? How could he use surrender in that person? Broly could concentrate his N and Formless Realm to increase the amount of energy per cubic meter of Formless Realm. Being the maximum possible concentration per cubic meter the current combat power of Broly. Cost of creation equals birth power level. Maximum concentration equals actual power level. These conditions therefore limited the devouring capacity and also the size of the Formless Realm to evade and teleport, taking into account that the objects inside the Formless Realm hindered that process. Broly throughout the fight was slowly devouring Hit's head, because Hit's amount of energy was huge and among other things Broly always had to maintain the maximum concentration of Formless Realm, also limiting his ability to teleport. In addition, Broly had to be constantly spending energy from the real Formless. In addition, the surrender expense wasn't reimbursable, since without Hits realizing it, sometimes increased that percentage by 33%, pushing back the devour. Broly couldn't stop surrender, because, if he did, Hit would lose all the sensibility of the devoured area and realize his intentions, finding a way to counteract it or going directly to action, destroying his only strategy to win. Broly had been dodging, defending, and making Hit's attacks useless, to make him spend energy in those attacks leaving less energy in the head, had been attacking only his trunk, arms, and legs so he didn't send energy to the head to protect it, all for that reason. From the beginning he knew that it would be impossible for him to devour the whole head without he notices it, but, he could devour most of his head and take away some of his senses before Hit used the 100% of his power. Now he just needed to devour what was left of his head manually, meaning the defeat of Hit. This was part of the greatness of the Nen, an art that allows you to beat someone stronger. As the great Master Roshi said. Flashback. Goku. What strength meant to you? Master Roshi said in the middle of the power struggle, when Goku was losing against Jiren. Strength? Well, even my SS blue form can't keep up with him, so I guess why need a greater power? Goku said, feeling cornered. Power you say? Plain old fighting strength? Who the heck taught you that? Vegeta. Frieza. Until you learn not get caught up in the enemy's power, you'll always be as green as the day we met, said Master Roshi, giving the lesson of his life to Goku, lesson that would allow him to realize the Magat no Goki. Hit, due to the fear that caused him to see how a part of his head had disappeared, decided to go with all his natural power this time, although, he also had a change of plans. I must beat him quickly. But before I kill him, I must know how to recover the parts of my body. Or what can happen to me is uncertain. But Broly was also about to turn to his last ace up his sleeve to beat Hit, something tailored specifically for him. I have reached the final phase of the boss. I only have one life, it surpasses me in level and the son of a bitch doesn't have a fixed attack pattern. Everything is against me, but if I have learned something from humanity. If you cannot adapt to your environment, make your environment adapt to you. Hit with his time skip quickly advanced towards Broly with the intention of hitting him in a non-mortal but forceful way. When suddenly, when leaving his time skip, everything went dark and what he hit wasn't Broly. It was a wall, probably the toughest wall he had ever hit in his life. Hit with his ki created light around him. Hit was inside a small closed black room. What has that demon done now? Spaceship of Frost's Peace Corps. Everyone in the control room with his mouth wide open and his jaw touching the floor of the spaceship looked with their eyes out of the sockets at the main screen of that room. Everyone was looking like where Broly and Hit were having a spectacular battle, suddenly appeared between a green energy and a black dome the size of a mountain. One of the elite warriors, experienced in more thousand battles, looked at this macrostructure that had appeared out of nowhere and said, "I don't understand anything that is happening right now." Asked a technician who thought he was getting older just by watching the video, where did that huge thing come from? The captain of the spaceship, who watched this bizarre scene with a mental chaos that knows no limits and said while trying to lean on his chair, "How do we inform this to Emperor Frost?" At that moment a person came through the door and said, "Captain, it may be a bad time, but Emperor Frost has just arrived and asks us to send him all the information about the current state of the battle." Frost in his original form and prepared for battle, accompanied by his trusted escorts advanced through the spaceship to the command room, where the fight between Hit and Broly on the planet Sadala was being analyzed. "What's the situation?" Frost asked the captain of the spacecraft that had been organizing all the information. The captain looked at Frost and, while showing him the recordings, said, "I think some images say more than 1,000 words." Frost, with his great innate mental abilities of the Frost demons, observed all the recordings at once, stunned by what he saw, clenched his teeth in rage. "Damn! What the hell is all this? That monkey didn't do any of this in our battle. He wasn't so strong, he showed nothing of his power. Did you underestimate me so much? In addition, what the hell is that dome?" One of Frost's escorts, after seeing the recordings as well, approached Frost and asked worried, "Lord Frost, what do we do with that monster?" Frost, furious at the obvious motive behind those words, said, "What we have come from the beginning, we have to eliminate that monster, or the universe will be in danger." This was the official version, but the reality is that he was blinded by his revenge, even with the great difference in power, even though he had trained. "Have you been able to analyze his skills and develop a strategy?" Frost said, trying to calm down. "That's right, sir, as you ordered, but I don't know if it will be enough to defeat that monster," said the captain, who, despite having confidence in the work of his team and Emperor, was intimidated by the strange three-eyed monkey boy. Frost, with a thought similar to that of the captain, said, "It can work. Who wants to fight is free to accompany me to stop that monster. He's tired and hurt, so I have a way to beat him." Many of the warriors were frightened, but, upon seeing the heroic action of their Emperor, they were again emboldened, shouting many at the same time, "Yes! Lord Frost! Perfect, the more human shields there are between Broly and me, the better." Hit, on guard, illuminated by the light of his ki, looked around and said, "Where the hell am I?" Broly, before embarking on his trip to the Universe 6, created a huge hemispherical building 60 kilometers in diameter made of Kaioshin, the hardest material in the universe, and put it inside the formless realm. The interior of this dome had hundreds of closed rooms of 2 cubic meters stacked with each other, and in one of them Hit was trapped. The rooms were small, making it difficult for someone to move inside, but that wasn't a problem for a real 10-year-old scion like Broly. The rooms were closed and the walls were so hard that even an SS Blue couldn't easily destroy it, but that wasn't a problem for someone who could teleport easily, like Broly. In the most complete darkness, difficult to orientate for anyone, but it wasn't a problem for someone with a prodigious N and with Jugun, as Broly. "Everything is ready. This is my ultimate battle." Broly from a remote room began his attack by teleporting his hands into Hit's room, mercilessly hitting in Kaioken X20 state on the back and face. Hit, that still hadn't been able to locate himself, but never forgetting his defense, stopped the attack that was aimed at his ear, since he was watching especially all the blows that could go to his head, after realizing that it had disappeared. However, he wasn't able to stop the blow directed to the back, which, although it wasn't very painful, he noticed that he had lost the sensitivity of a few millimeters, just like with his head previously. Hit understood Broly's intentions and decided to attack as well. The time skip of Hit allowed to attack with a ki punch through his dimension, which would leave to the real world in 0.1 seconds, that allowed him to cross any obstacle or defense, including the hard walls of Kaioshin. Hit, despite not being able to see perfectly in that situation as Broly, he was able to determine his position by his ki, and with that, he pointed to the head of Broly, but the ki with whom he could locate Broly, dispersed in several places of that building, in rooms extremely separated one from the other, and kept changing rooms constantly without a fixed pattern. Although Broly could only teleport a third of his body inside the formless realm to protect himself while attacking, he can also separate his whole body in the same way that his arms and legs to defend himself, fragmenting in several places his body like the Captain Buggy of One Piece. Or at least it is what it seemed at first glance. Hit had failed and realized how difficult would be to hit him in that situation. Damn! As he lamented, more blows came at him from all directions, flying hands and legs continued to appear in the darkness, hitting him repeatedly. He didn't feel pain, but some of those blows managed to make disappear some millimeters of his body. Damn, at this rate I will disappear little by little. I must go out of here. Hit using his time skip ran at full speed, trespassing the walls and appearing in other rooms several kilometers away. However, Broly had anticipated the rooms in which he could appear, hitting him in the right ear, making an inch of her disappear. Hit, seeing himself cornered again, launched an attack towards where he believed that Broly's head was, but once again, he dodged her by sending his head to another room. Broly was too far away, there were too many obstacles, and his ability to dodge in this environment was extremely annoying. After several failed attempts to hit Broly, he gave up and returned with his escape plan. Kaioshin, said Broly while using materialization magic. As he left his time skip of the possible rooms where Hit could have appeared, heavy blocks of Kaioshin with spikes on his surface fell. Ah! Hit, who didn't have time to perform his time skip instantly, had no choice but to try to hold for a few moments the heavy block of Kaioshin with his hands, hurting them slightly and being unprotected for a moment. Broly took advantage. Automa Rasen Omega Blaster. Boom! The big sphere of energy enveloped the entire room, creating a huge explosion, which became more powerful to detonate in a closed space. Hit, hurt by the impact and with more parts of his body missing, including 2 fingers of his right hand, he escaped using his time skip once again, repeating the process of fleeing and being attacked several times. When will I leave here? At that moment the top of Broly, from the head to the chest, appeared before him. What? Hit didn't understand why he had done that. It was illogical to expose himself in that way, so illogical that he wasn't prepared for this situation, not making any attack on his enemy. Broly hit Hit's chest, but this time it wasn't to hurt him and use his "Welcome to the Black Parade," it was for another reason. Teleport. Upon making contact with Hit, Broly had sent his top and Hit back to the center of the building, and fragmented his body again in other rooms. Against someone who surpasses me so much in power, this is the only spatial ability that I can use apart from my gravity increase. The risky thing about this ability is that the part with which I hit my enemy and the Jugon must be connected when I perform this technique. A technique that allows me to teleport any person I touch with me anywhere covered by my formless realm. Hit, he realized what had happened, he had returned to the starting point. Broly didn't want him to leave that building. Damn, I cannot fight well here and he's preventing me from running away. I have to give everything to get out of here, or I'll end up vanishing. Yo! Hit, using all his hidden strength, ran at full speed while throwing his key punches in all the directions he thought Broly would appear. He was going with everything, either defensively or offensively, not reserving his energy at all, and ran once more, going through wall after wall and trying to dodge and block Broly's attacks at the same time he tried to hit or hinder him with his attacks. Frost and his troops had surrounded the dome, hearing the rumblings produced inside, horrified to imagine what kind of battle might be happening. The location of the rumble changed constantly, but it followed a pattern. It started from the center, moved to the sides, and returned to the center again, repeating that pattern over and over again. Be prepared, they could leave at any time, said one of the captains. Frost, flying in the sky, began to charge his technique. Frost created a cutting discs of red energy in each hand and began to grow it, concentrating more and more energy. You gave me the idea of this technique, Broly. I will not be able to kill you cleanly, but I never cared about winning dirtily. After a few minutes, boom! Hit managed to get out of the dome. More than half of his head had disappeared, leaving only his mouth, nose, left eye and parts stuck them. He had lost several fingers of the right and left hand, back and arms, chest, legs, all the places to a greater or lesser extent had disappeared and were covered by a strange green energy. Out of nowhere Broly's top appeared with an empty heart in front of Hit, and was about to punch him again. Hit watched him with anger and thought. As I thought, he wants to send me back inside that dome. However, this time, Hit was ready for his final attack. Hit, believing that there was a time limit of 2 seconds in which Broly could keep a part of his formless realm, made a strategy. Time skip. Hit, since he realized Broly's time condition, fake, he created an attack for this situation. Hit, using all his abilities, he threw dozens of his key punch in his stop time dimension, threw them everywhere, but special in the heart, however each of those key punch aimed at the heart had different speeds. According to his calculations, one of these key punch would hit Broly's heart once the time limit was over, he just had to keep him in that position until then. When leaving his time skip, Hit, using all the energy that was left, grabbed Broly by the hands, leaving him immobilized, and all the ki punches began to manifest in the normal world. Broly teleported several parts of his body to protect himself. Hit watched as his ki punches passed through Broly's empty chest as if they were the shot of a submachine gun, waiting for the moment when his heart would return to his position. Checkmate. 1. 2. Die. However, it didn't happen. All his attacks had been avoided. Cannot be. He has cheated me all this time. Yuo. Hit felt that he had lost consciousness for a moment. Hit had been poisoned. Broly during the fight against Frost, could analyze the needle he used and create a copy of the needle and poison, and now he had that needle in one of the hands Hit had grabbed. Checkmate. At that moment, the bottom of Broly appeared in front of Hit's head, and with one leg in a kicking position, which contained all the possible energy that he had managed to store for that last blow. Shining with an intense and violent green color. Broly ready to hit Hit in the face. If that kick hits with the left part of Hit's head, it would be the end. But... die. Frost, who was waiting for the right moment, launched his attack on the exhausted and concentrated Broly and Hit, which were at the end of their fight, without paying attention to anything else. Which didn't see that attack until it was very close. Shit. Broly watched as a giant disc of energy approached him, while still pinning Hit with his entire upper body as he prepared to make the final blow. There was only one way to dodge that and win at the same time. Broly transported a large part of his body, from one shoulder to the other, going from the abdomen to the skull, from top to bottom to the formless realm. Occupying the full third part of the body he was able to send. He managed to avoid the energy disc, but that energy disc fragmented into two, and that second disc went up. Fiam. Ah. That cutting disc went to the lower part of Broly's body, which was about to finish Hit and cut off Broly's tail. Ahahaha. It's a shame you dodged it, but at least I could avenge my cut tail, laughed Frost, celebrating the success of his attack, glad to have cut off Broly's tail in the same way that Broly did to him. Now. Kill him, Hit. However, having cut the tail, Broly lost its transformation, balance, and all the increased gravity space around him. Falling to the ground with its original appearance and 10 times less power. Everyone was surprised by what happened, not only Frost or Hit, but also everyone present, especially some Scions, who began to relate the tale and the transformation with part of the ancient history of the planet Sadala. What the hell is this? Broly has become a Scion. Hey, what's going on here? Asked Frost, which began to see enemies and conspiracies around him. While everyone wondered what had happened, while Forst asked for explanations, while the Scions tried to organize their ideas, while Hit, exhausted and relieved, looked with surprise at Broly by his detransformation and strange behavior. Broly on the ground, trembling with rage while raising his tail cut. My tail. My tail. My tail. My tail. My fucking tail. Broly, due to the anger, the veins of his face swelled, his body began to give off an intense green aura, his hair danced in the wind and his eyes turned yellow. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.